Hi guys, it's Teracel from Mint Owl Studios, and welcome to my very first tutorial video as part of the amazing Mint Owl Studio design team. Today I'm going to be creating this stained glass shaker card featuring the beautiful Love for Mom stamp set. So to start, I'm going to bust out my Misty tool and do a whole bunch of masking and stamping. So off camera, I cut some circles and I cut one out of watercolor cardstock, and that's what I'm using here. This is Canson XL Cold Press Watercolor Cardstock. I also cut one out of some heat-resistant acetate, which I showed you on the screen just a moment ago. They're the exact same size, and I'm going to use this beautiful Love for Mom stamp set to create the same pattern on each circle. So to do that, I put it on my Misty and traced it with my pencil. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my Antique Linen Distress ink to stamp on the watercolor cardstock because I'm going to be doing some no-line watercoloring later. And then on the piece of heat-resistant acetate, I'm going to go ahead and use my Versamark ink, and I'm going to heat emboss all of these images in black embossing powder. So you can see that I made a little line at the top of my circle, and that's just to help guide me when I put everything back in here for future stamping so that I know which direction is up. So as you can see, I used my Versamark on here. The mistake that I made was I didn't come in first with my anti-static powder bag, which I totally should have because acetate is super static clingy and I got little pieces of embossing powder everywhere. But that's okay. I just grabbed a dry paintbrush, and I'm kind of removing anything that I can get to with my paintbrush. If there's a couple stray ones, it's not really going to matter. In the end, the pattern's going to be so busy anyway that you're not going to notice, but I tried to get as much as I could. So you can see how easily that heat embosses, and then when you go ahead and line those up, it's a perfect match. And that's pretty cool when it's one flower, but it's really neat when you start doing this over and over and over and the patterns match. So before I started, I made some masks of each of the flowers that I'm going to use. I used Inkadinka stamping mask paper for that. And I'm going to go ahead and mask that big flower that I put at the beginning, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my Misty to pick up these two smaller flowers that are also in this stamp set. First stamp them on the watercolor piece, and then put the acetate piece back in here, put my mask back on, and go ahead and stamp those same images in the Versamark. So in order to do this process, the Misty is super handy because as long as I put everything in the same spot on the bottom on the grid paper and I leave my stamps stuck to the top, it's all going to go in the same spot. So it's pretty nice. If you had any other stamp positioning tool, you could probably create a similar effect. But it's really nice to have a stamp positioning tool for this particular process. So I just repeated this a whole bunch of times, and you just have to make sure you do each piece with each position of the stamps before you move on to the next ones. But you can see now I'm replacing my masks. I'm going to put these masks of the smaller stamps on there also. And I was kind of turning them around a little bit to figure out which direction they fit onto those little flowers. I finally on this bottom one used those three little dots on the center to figure out which direction to put that mask on. But I did this a whole bunch of times, as you can see, and this is my last one. So there's my watercolor piece all done. And now I'm going to put the last stamp on my acetate piece so you guys can see what it looks like when it's all finished. I'll take a moment and apologize to you guys for my voice. I have had a heck of a time this year with the cooties. I don't know, I just keep getting sick. And I just was yesterday diagnosed with the flu. So I am just like, it's killing me. But I wanted to make sure that I got this video ready for Mint Owl Studios, so that's why my voice has this husky whatever's going on here. So sorry about that. So now I'm going to do my no line watercoloring, and for this I'm using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I'm just going to come in where I want the darkest shadows to be and apply that color, and then just use my water brush to pull that color out to the end. So I'm only using one color per area. I'm just creating the shadows by pulling out the color so that it's lighter towards the top. And I will just repeat this process for everything. I love the look of no line watercoloring. I think that it's super elegant looking. I just think that it takes your pieces to that next level of really looking like art. And the Zig Clean Color pens really make it super easy because you don't have to worry about getting all your brushes out and all that jazz. You can just put the color down where you want it, pull it out. I wasn't spending a whole lot of time. If I wasn't doing the shaker card part where I was putting the stained glass piece on the top, I probably would have spent a little bit more time making sure these shadows were deepened and really getting the detail in there. But because I knew I was just going to put the other piece on top and it was going to kind of mute down some of the detail, I didn't spend as much time as I might have if this was going to be the centerpiece, which this would be beautiful all by itself. This stamp set is so pretty. These flowers are so great. They're so much fun to color that this absolutely could have stood by itself. The shaker card part, you totally don't have to add, but I just thought it would be fun. It's one of those concepts that I had in my head, and I was like, I really want to try it. And then I saw this stamp set and I was like, perfect. This is the perfect stamp set to try this stained glass look on. I wanted to see if when you put that acetate piece on the outside, if it really did just kind of get that stained glass look. And then I loved the idea of the shaker bits shaking around in between the color and the acetate. Like, I don't know why that just really intrigued me. Like, to have the shaker bits in between the color and the lines. Like, I just thought it was cool. And then you use the clear beads and it adds kind of that extra thing, even because you can still see the color through them. But anyway, it was just one of those ideas that I had that kind of stuck, and I really wanted to try it out. So now I'm moving on to some of the smaller flowers here. I'm going to color all of this style of flower in the same color, and then I'll use a different color for all of the like daisy flowers here. So as you can see, I'm going in once and I'm laying down my color. I'm pulling everything out. I only do one petal at a time because I don't want my color to dry too much. I want to be able to pull it while it's still wet and I'm able to manipulate it really well. And then I'm letting things dry as I do the whole flower and get a base coat on. And then that helps when I come back in later and I put down another coat for deepening the shadows. It makes the color layer instead of just being able to super move around. And that creates those deeper shadows. So I'm trying to kind of shadow those petals that look like they're a little bit behind the other petals, and then also the parts of the flower that look like they're tucked up underneath the other flowers because of the masking. And then I'm using the same yellow I used for the center of the big flower in the center of all these blue flowers. So I colored all of those, and now I'm doing my little yellow daisies here. So I'm just going to do very similar concept, put down the color kind of in the middle where I want the shadows, and then pull it out. This yellow is much lighter, so it's kind of harder to get really dark shadows, but I still think it looked really pretty. And then I'm going to use a brown tone for the middle, almost like a sunflower on these ones. So I really love this color combination. Those blue flowers I wasn't too sure about when I started, but I really love the way that they pop against the yellow, and then the purple in the middle is just gorgeous. So then I took this lilac shade, which is almost kind of gray, and I just kind of lined all the flowers and then pulled it out to fill in all that empty space in between the flowers so it wasn't just so stark white. So now that both my pieces are ready, you can see how those line up perfectly. I love it. I think it looks so cool. And now I'm going to start building my shaker. So this is a piece of craft foam. It's 2mm craft foam, and I used the same circle die that I used to cut out my circles that I stamped on, and one that was a couple sizes smaller to create a frame. And I'm just going to go ahead and glue that right on the outside. I was going to use my Zig glue pen, but it wasn't quite strong enough, so I used my glossy accents to go ahead and glue this on the outside. And once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and take my clear seed beads that I have, and I'm just going to dump a bunch of those right in the middle. Oh, excuse me. The cold is making it so that every couple minutes I have to stop and like take a really deep breath because talking takes all my lung capacity right now. But I put my seed beads in there. I think that looks super cool on top of the coloring. I just really love it. And I shake those around so they're down to one layer because the 2mm craft foam is pretty thin. And then I'm going to use my glossy accents to put another line around the outside. And then I'm going to line this top piece up and just glue it right on there. So I did put also another piece of white cardstock on the top that I cut as a frame, just like I did for the craft foam. So it kind of hides that edge and makes it nice and clean. And then I let that dry for several hours, actually, with some acrylic blocks sitting on top of it, just to make sure that those seed beads weren't able to fall out. So this is a piece of fog gray cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and it's a normal A2 size card base, but I did cut it down to be square, so it's 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then I'm going to take this cobblestone ink from Simon Says Stamp, it's gray, and I'm going to take one of these really cute sprig images from the same stamp set that you can use to kind of build bouquets or fill in your bouquets. And I thought it'd be really fun to create a background for this card using this more simple image and a tone-on-tone look with that gray ink on top of the gray cardstock. So I stamped all my images and then I put my shaker on there, and then I realized that there were a couple spots that I didn't think were quite full enough. So I grabbed my image again and I just kind of filled in some of those empty spaces with that little sprig. I think this is a really pretty image, and I think that it would be really sweet even just by itself to create a bouquet. But it worked out really well for this background. I thought it looked really cute. So once I get the background how I like it, I'm going to go ahead and position my shaker on there, and then I will take my ATG gun and I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back of my shaker here, which is now nice and dry and solid. That's another thing, is I wanted this to be really dry before I started manhandling it all over the place, so those little beads weren't falling out. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere this right onto the front of my card after I drop it. It didn't stick though, fortunately. And I'm just going to put that on there. I love the contrast of the white and then that neutral card base. I think it looks really pretty. And then to finish up the inside, which honestly I don't do often enough, and I'm going to start working on trying to finish up the inside of my cards more. I went ahead and took one of the sentiments from the stamp set, and it's just Happy Mother's Day. Mother's Day is coming up, so I thought that was perfect and appropriate, and that this card is nice and pretty and any mom would like to get it. And I went ahead and used that same cobblestone ink, and I just stamped that sentiment right in the middle of the inside of the card there. And then just to tie in the outside of the card and make it more cohesive with the front, I used that same sprig and just kind of put that right there by my sentiment. So that completes the card. So this was my idea. You can see how the shaker beads kind of shake around inside, and so you can see them moving in between the lines and the color. It's kind of totally different, a little bit of a unique take on a shaker card. There's a nice close-up. You can see those beads in there and that no line coloring. So lots of good tips for masking and then no line coloring. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the description box for a link to Mint Owl Studios and to join Mint Owl Studios on social media. Thanks. Bye.